All right.
Yeah. So chapter 3 in org behavior is attitudes and job satisfaction. Now, it's obvious that attitudes are very important. Like whenever we hire somebody, it's just not the skills, it's not just the technical skills, the conceptual skills, or plenty of human skills which are required for an employee to succeed. Because you're just dealing with people, you're dealing with a lot of events at the workplace, and you're also dealing with, you know, things that you do, your job, your tasks that you perform. So attitudes has, your positive attitude is pretty contagious. So I'm sure you understand we always speak about attitude in our daily life as well. Suppose something does happen to us, how do we take it? How do we, evaluate a situation? How do we evaluate people or tasks or jobs at hand? How do we, look at our own lives? All these things matter to us. You might be in a tough situation, then you might keep asking yourself, why is this happening to me all the time? And you may be, upset and you might not feel good. But you probably might look at other people with similar situations and they might say, oh, this presents a unique opportunity for me to do something outside the box. Let me learn from this situation. I'm going through a hard time. It cannot get worse than this, but then I'm going to come back stronger. I'm more determined. I'm going to stay more, focused. I'll work harder on my skill sets. I'll try different things. I'll talk to people. I'll do all the constructive things to take care of my physical, fitness. I'll take good care of myself psychologically, emotionally. I'm going to stay balanced. Let me do some yoga. Let me do some, certification. Let me do some investment in my own education. All these things that you would probably do to come out of a difficult situation. So attitudes actually is everything. Towards the end of the class, I'll tell you to do a little exercise. I just don't want to waste too much time at the beginning of the class. But attitude to me is perhaps even more important than just the technical skills and the conceptual skills. Even if I know how to read, say, statements, accounting statements, or financial statements, or even if I know how to use the most sophisticated softwares, if I'm not a great person to work with, both individually and in teams, I'm not going to be that effective. I'm not going to be that productive for the company. My contribution is going to be much marginalized because I don't carry a positive attitude. For everything that happens, my shoulders drop. I use disempowering language. Maybe I'll participate in dysfunctional activities. I'm deviant. And then I have withdrawal symptoms. And that's what we call negative attitude. The key is to make sure that your employees, you're a manager, you're working with a bunch of people, you want to keep them positive and keep them motivated, even during times where pandemic is hit, where jobs might get, you might lose jobs, certain people might be furloughed, a lot of people, employees take pay cuts, and your businesses are generally hurting. All that, in spite of all that happening, you as a manager, you have a responsibility to keep your employees motivated and involved at the workplace. You want to keep them committed to what they're doing, and continue to tell them, you keep doing the good work, we'll come out of this, we can face it together. We are not all by ourselves, we are one team. So for me, attitudes in our behavior or in general life are extremely important. Any thoughts on that before we start off on the slides itself?
Yeah, I would completely agree with what you're saying. Having worked with a lot of different people at my job
Mm-hmm.
and also having supervised community service people
Mm-hmm.
correctionally, I have to say, keeping a good attitude with people really allows jobs to work better. And usually, if I work better with people, attitude wise, there's actually been cases where I've made nice bonds with people even after they've left.
Right. Yeah. And so you have lasting friendships at the workplace. You're more productive. You're generating, fresh ideas and better approaches to solving, some real tough challenges and problems. So I completely agree. And thank you for sharing your experiences there. So today's class, the learning objectives, we want to contrast the three components of an attitude. What basically constitutes an attitude? Summarize the relationship between attitudes and how attitudes influence our behavior, We're also going to talk about several attitudes like job involvement, organizational commitment that we have, stuff like that. And then we'll, of course, discuss the most important attitude at the workplace, which is job satisfaction. So we look at what causes the causality of job satisfaction. What are the dimensions, variables that influence the final employee job satisfaction? So, and why is that job satisfaction has to be studied at the first place? And once we have certain results from these studies on job satisfaction surveys that we do of employees, what kind of outcomes of job satisfaction are we trying to influence? And if you have dissatisfied employees, what kind of dysfunctional behaviors that they might involve themselves with? And we don't want that to happen. We want to keep our employees happy because they influence organizational goals, they influence productivity at the workplace, the general work climate, and the way we treat our own customers. Each of these aspects is influenced by extremely satisfied employees in a positive way. So let's start off today's class by talking about the first one, the three components of an attitude. Now, this is the basic definition that we're talking about, the evaluative statements that we have, and those evaluative statements can be favorable or unfavorable about objects, about people, or about events, and about tasks and jobs and work that we do every day at home, at the workplace. Those are the evaluative statements. For a long time, I've felt in my life that I've never worked on a single day. Teaching, if you find a job that you love and you're passionate about and it makes you feel satisfied, there is a sense of self-worth. I don't think you will ever perceive that you're actually going to work and it's a burden and it's a lot on your physical abilities, it's a lot on your mental abilities. You don't feel that anymore because this is something that keeps you in a meditative state. So to me, for example, personally, I've enjoyed teaching, uh, whether I was teaching in India or whether I've taught in the Middle East, or I continue to teach in the US. Teaching is something that this 1 hour or 60 minutes or 90 minutes of time that I have a chance to spend with students is perhaps the best time of my day. And of course, the time that I spend with my kids and family, that's amazing. And I have the same sense of respect and feeling when I am in class. The fact that I'm able to share whatever little I know, and the fact that I can learn from your conversations and your experiences, and to just be part of your success story, just to be part of your exciting academic and professional career, just to be an integral element somewhere. You probably, at even 10 years later, you will say, Prabhakar, you've been great and you did a decent job. You taught us something and you shared some valuable insights and experiences. Just that one line from you guys somewhere, even not now, maybe 10 years later, if you said that, it's extremely fulfilling as a teacher. So I just feel blessed that I have a kind of job that I enjoy, and that influences my attitude towards what I do, towards people, towards my students. Even it has an impact on the way I treat my kids and family members and my extended family members. So for me, attitudes is such an important thing. So find yourself a job. I know it's not always easy, as I say, but find yourself a job that you enjoy doing and that you're passionate and you draw a sense of satisfaction and that you don't feel bored doing and you don't feel repetitive about it, because it's such a noble thing to do, like teaching, and you're always interacting with young minds, the future of this world and the country, and you're some way shaping their future. That itself is very fulfilling. So what do you think, uh, feels you connected, gets you going, and keeps you going even when the situation gets tough and challenging? What are the attitudes, some of the attitudes that you carry, that actually have a positive influence in the way you feel, the statements that you have on describing people or objects or jobs that you do, and what actually keeps you ticking and in a passionate way? Can you want to say something?
I would like to
Yeah.
say that one of the things that I uh, think that keeps me going and
Hmm.
try to learn more is being self-aware.
Right.
Um, it's because when you're self-aware or you try to be self-aware, you know where you lack in terms of skill, in terms of like where you what you need to learn to succeed, and just not sit there and blame other things, not blame the situation. You just take an initiative to learn that and get better at it. And if you're self-aware, you can succeed a lot, knowing your weaknesses and working on them. So in my opinion, uh yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you bring up a very, very important point of being self-aware. Not always easy because you're caught up in the daily chores, and then you're just caught up with, those challenges and immediate urgent events that you need to attend to. So you just don't have that space and time for yourself to become more self-aware. I completely agree. And Vivek, you're bringing in a topic which is very close to my heart. I'm a big, advocate of being self-aware, and that actually stems from the fact you're monitoring yourself in a positive way, and then you have greater self-control of what happens to you at a personal level and also at the workplace. And in the sense, it just builds your self-confidence. So when you say self-aware, I would actually add self-monitoring, self-control, self-confidence, and then you create a very positive self-image of yourself because you keep working on your skill sets, you keep investing in the kind of person you are. So thank you for bringing that very important topic for discussion. I really appreciate it. So, and then we go off to the next slide. We are looking at the components of an attitude. Now, an attitude has three elements to it. I would always, encourage you to pay attention as we discuss this. I think this is a very important slide, not just for an exam point of view, but for us as human beings, because we all have an opportunity to do better every day. There's no end to learning and to the better person that we can be. So I would ask you to please pay attention to this slide. There are cognitive elements. And there's a very simple example there in that little top box that you see here. It says, my supervisor gave a promotion to another person who deserved it less than I did. So obviously you're making an evaluation of the process that was used for deciding promotion. Someone else who didn't deserve it got the promotion and you didn't. So you just formed an evaluation and you're saying, my supervisor is unfair, and you're going by factual information. You're using your mind, that you're using your cognitive capacity to come to that kind of evaluation about your supervisor's decision and the process that he followed in giving an unfair promotion to someone else, and you deserved it better. So that's the cognitive part. We're thinking, we're smart people, and human beings are. And then when we go down to the next component, which we call as the affective component, is the feeling. I dislike my supervisor. That's obviously stemming from the fact what the supervisor did, that you cannot like him that much anymore, and you perhaps are beginning to dislike him even more. And then the last one is the behavioral. So obviously, it's not just about what we think and what we feel. Eventually, it just translates into what we are going to do, and that's behavior, and that's equivalent to action. So I'm looking for other work. I'm going to complain to everybody who's having time to listen. I'm going to say bad things about my supervisor. I don't really care. If you look at this whole example, it's pretty negative. But that's what happens to us. There is a cognitive element where we are thinking, processing information, what's going on around us. Then we are having to come down to an evaluation based on what we're thinking. Then we have this feeling of hurt, dislike for somebody. Maybe even it can become hatred and anger and displaced aggression. And then eventually, it shows up in the way you behave and everyday behavior towards him or towards your work or towards your organization. Everything gets bad. So cognitive, affective, behavioral. Again, it goes back to what Vivek was saying. If you understood how your attitudes are everyday forming, I mean, you can take a step back every minute of your life and assess how your attitudes are forming. But just the fact that you're being a bit more self-aware perhaps gives you a chance to understand, okay, I'm looking at perhaps fewer amount of facts. Maybe there are other things that my supervisor was considering while giving someone else a promotion. Maybe I don't have the full picture. Let me go talk to him. I don't like the decision. I think I deserved it. But let me go and speak to him. Because there is a cognitive side of it, which is just taking the whatever little crumbs of information that you have, and you're creating a big picture. Maybe that's not the big picture. So you want to collect more information. You want to engage in a discussion, a dialogue, so that your evaluation is not going to be a one extreme evaluation. And perhaps it might affect your feeling towards the supervisor. You tell him, okay, I give him the benefit of doubt. He explained it to me. I don't like him, but I don't have to dislike him. I get his point of view. I wish he could have considered my case more, and I feel I still deserve it, but I don't dislike him. He seems to be okay. He's not that unfair as I thought he was. And then obviously, that means till you find another job, you still are searching for a job because you didn't get promoted. But till you search for a job, you're very positive, you're in a good frame of mind, you're in a good space, and obviously your actions in the current organization are positive. Your supervisor may be a reference. He might write you a good reference letter. And when they call him back to find out how good you are, he might have good things to say. He's like, he should have got a promotion. And trust me, he's a good guy and he's done great. He's going to say good things because you're being good to him in spite of not being promoted. So, did I explain that?
Yes.
So break it down and take a step backward because we are smart and mature individuals. And now we know how attitudes are formed. I keep telling my daughter, do not use the word hate. Human beings, I think we're better than that. We are not programmed to hate. We are programmed to like something, to love something, to be passionate about something, to stay positive about something, to learn even from the most disastrous situation. So I keep telling her, you say, I don't prefer. I would not prefer. I would not, choose this. I would have a better choice, perhaps. But do not use the word, I hate this. I hate that. She's just about 10 years old and perhaps she picks up all those words from people of her own age. So I keep telling her, I discourage her. Please don't use the word hate. Just say I don't prefer that. I would choose another color. I would choose another friend. I would just stay away from this. That's okay, but don't say I hate him, I hate her. Don't develop those extreme negative feelings. That's the key of such an important thing in your thought process and the way you feel and the way you behave. Even I can give you personal examples where I was insulted and I didn't feel insulted. I know I'm telling you something strange. When people choose to insult you, you can choose not to feel insulted. That's how strong you can be. Physically assaulted, you will be hurt. If they try to physically hurt you, there's no way you can avoid being physically hurt. But mentally, you can block them off. Anybody who's speaking negative to you, you just block them off. You're oblivious to it, and then work on yourself. If they're criticizing you, take it positively and say, let me prove myself, let me invest in myself, let me credential myself, let me prove it silently without having to break a bone or break furniture or just lose your top. You just can stay calm and composed because you're having what Vivek was talking about, self-awareness. Then I want to come back to another very important thing. Leon Festinger, he talks about cases of attitudes following behavior. This is a wonderful thing. Cases of attitude following behavior. We came with the other way, right? We said attitudes have an impact on behavior because there's a cognitive element, there's a feeling element which is affective, and there is a behavior element. Sometimes, attitudes can follow a behavior. Just the fact, suppose, I think it was Chris. Was it Chris who was talking in the beginning of the class?
Yep, that
Yeah.
was me.
Yeah, so you were actually talking about working with people who are positive and doing some service activities and stuff. When you engage in behavior, that is very satisfying. Your attitude changes to life. You stay more grateful. You're more giving. You're more accommodating because you participated in great behavior. Just the people around you, the societies that you live, the communities that you actually engage with, gave you opportunities to, exhibit behavior, which was extremely satisfying, which was extremely humbling, and therefore it influences your attitude. Sometimes attitudes follow behavior, and sometimes it could be that you have incompatibilities between two or more attitudes or behavior and attitudes. So, people say something and then they regret. Has it happened to you? You say something and then you begin to regret.
Yeah.
So do you want explain, talk more about it if it's okay? You don't have to give detail, but you just can. generic description of what you did, and then you took a day, 2 days off, and then you said, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Did it happen?
It did. So I when I was this discussion about studying in US, my parents were initially not very pleased to hear because they thought I was too young and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So I said something bad, and
Yeah,
then
I know we all go through this.
after a few days, I realized that I should have I shouldn't have said stuff like that. You know.
Right. I think that the fact that you're admitting to something like that shows your honesty, your courage, and your true love for your parents. So I see such a positive thing that you felt after you did something, you went back and then looked at it and said, I could have done better than that. So that's something that happens to all of us. It's just not you, Peter. We always do something, and then our attitudes are way much better than that. We are better people than what sometimes we do, and that's what Leon Festinger calls as dissonance, incompatibility. I know Peter as a person. I've talked to you uh, pre pandemic. We were good friends and we traveled in the metro train together. And I know you're such a soft and nice person to go with. And so obviously your true attitudes are very different. Sometimes your behavior gets, it goes really crazy. So that's what Leon Festinger calls as cognitive dissonance. The more mature you become, the more experienced you become in understanding yourself and understanding others and situations, the lesser is your cognitive dissonance. The same thing applies at the workplace. When you disagree with somebody, your boss, your coworkers, you're participating in meetings, you can disagree, but there is you got to have that civil disagreement. There's that civility has to be preserved, and you can be courteous to your co-workers and your peer group and even to your boss and to your team members. You can be courteous to them and respectful to them, and you can still disagree. You don't have to agree on everything, but you can say no in a polite way, and that actually shows off a lot of attitude. Be patient, and don't hurry and say something that you're going to regret later. At the workplace, it can cost you your job, it can cost you friends, and it can cost you a lot of things. You could be socially ostracized at the workplace. Nobody wants you to be part of their team after what you did. So you got to be extremely cautious and work on situations where you have issues with your true attitudes or good attitudes, and then suddenly you have an outburst and you exhibit terrible behavior. So Leon Festinger, it's like this. You want to have you're an energy management major, and then you're thinking about going to management major, or you're in finance major, you want to move to operations and supply chain major. You're confused. You're doing something, but you don't like it. You're not happy with it. That's a cognitive dissonance because there's some incompatibility with what you're doing right now and where your heart and your feelings are. So I think cognitive dissonance is a very, very important thing. All of us go through those situations. It's not that your professor is a professor, so he doesn't have it. He has plenty of cognitive dissonance. But we are always, improving as professionals, as co-workers, as family members. We are all having chances to be better. Now, summarize the relationship between attitudes and behavior. These are the moderating variables that can happen. So, we talked about attitudes, the importance of attitudes, like the components, which are the cognitive, the thinking process that goes on, the affective, the feelings that happen towards people, towards events, and towards objects around us, and eventually the behavior. So, we spoke about the first attitude, importance, and correspondence to behavior. Accessibility, sometimes these can, suppose I had access to a lot of things, my attitude is much positive. I come from a country like India where poverty is huge. I mean, hundreds and thousands, actually millions, are extremely poor. They don't have access to the basic food and clean water and shelter. They don't have it. So what do you expect from them? I mean, it's so difficult. Life is so challenging. So accessibility can create. Same is the case at the workplace. If I do not have access to resources and you're expecting something big from me, my attitude is not going to be continue to be positive. So accessibility is a big thing. Presence of social pressures. Sometimes you have too much of pressure from family, from friends, from societies, from communities that you belong to. If it's good pressure, yeah, if it's a pressure that's optimum, that's fine. But excessive pressure destroys an individual. So that's a variable that can affect your behavior, that can affect your outlook. The evaluative statements that you make of others is being determined by the kind of pressure that you are under. Whether a person has direct experience with attitude, there are certain events that happen to you in your life that alter your attitude. Can anybody, if you don't mind, if you want to share something, is that an event that happened in your life that changed your perspective and attitude, the way you feel and look at life?
Yes.
Professor
Oh,
Jeff
sorry.
does.
Please,
You
yeah, go ahead.
wanna share it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like I've been through a loss. Like, the friend is still there, they're still alive, but a loss means that we didn't talk to each other anymore, and we've been like best friends since younger,
Mhm.
and then it's been like a very tough decisions for us to not talk to each other anymore, and then after that I realizing that I've been we've been a, what do you call it, a like a bubble. Like we want to tell each other things that we want to tell, and we don't really want to sit down and talk about our mm, how can I say it, disadvantages as a personality. And it changed me a lot after I stopped talking to my friend, and I grow a lot as a person too. So yeah.
I'm curious to ask, and forgive me if I'm asking this question. Do you talk to your friend now?
No, not really.
Okay. I'll tell you what my take on it, but thank you for sharing something like that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
my personal take, I would never give up on trying to talk to somebody or reconnect with somebody. Whatever the person wants to do, ignore you or doesn't want to, doesn't prefer to talk to you. It's not I'm going to be too pushy. I'll not put pressure on the person that they have to talk to me or respond to me. But once in a while, I would still try and stay in touch and just figure out how they're doing. Because when you genuinely, unconditionally love somebody and care for them, and that's your attitude again, you can be more forgiving, you can just let go of the past, and you can still, hope to build those bridges, even if they're not strong ties. Even weak ties are good because you genuinely care for somebody and their growth and their success. So,
I
and
told
then you do that.
well, when we stopped talking, I told my friend is that I will always be here if she needs me. We kind of ended it not really on a bad term per se. We ended it in a good term because we are like far away now. We don't have time for each other
Mhm.
very much, but it's not like a bad ending type of relationship.
Yeah, and then yeah, I like the way you say it, but perhaps you could go one step further and say, don't use the word ending. You never know because people come back to us. Good times come back to us. Bad times do not last forever, and challenging times do not stay forever.
Hmm.
And life is something that goes, the ebb and flow of life. That's part of it. So it happens in family. It can happen between friends. It can happen anywhere. So never I wouldn't prefer using the word ending or any type of ending. Even if you want to describe it, you would say, right now we don't speak so much, and we're still on good terms, and we really care for each other, and I just assured that I'm there for her. Yeah, hopefully we'll get back and we'll have some good time together sometime later. You never know, it might take many years, but that's fine. I'm good to wait. Yeah.
Hmm. Thank you
So
so much.
thank you for sharing that, Trin.
You're welcome.
Yeah. At the workplace, we're looking at attitudes like job satisfaction. How do you look at, jobs? And the way you work is actually important, dependent on how you evaluate your jobs. Okay, Filippo, I'll mark you. Don't worry. As soon as we finish off the class, that's not a problem. Okay. So, positive feeling about the job resulting from an evaluation of its characteristics. I never thought I'm a natural teacher, or I never assumed that I'm born for teaching. And I'll be lying if I said I plan to become a teacher. No, honestly, I've just found a job, and I thought, let me give it a shot, and maybe I'll be okay. And I can actually, if you don't think that I'm just talking too much about myself, I can tell you that I started off working in India for my first job in 1996 for $60 a month. That's what I was paid for as a faculty. And out of the $60, I could pay my grandma. I paid $20 because I was living in her home, so I paid her $20. And then I spent like $10-15 on students and going around taking them along. I was very young. I was younger than some of my students. And then I had $20 to survive, and that was enough money back in 1996 in India. $60 a month was good money. It just, I gave my grandma, I spent some on my students, and I had enough money for taking good care of myself. Strange, right? $60, a lot of money. Yeah, but you've never heard of it. I don't know how many of you were born in 1996, but that's when I started off. So, and I enjoyed it. I never was ambitious thinking, oh, I should become a software engineer. I should go to Germany to work. I want to settle somewhere, get that residency and citizenship. No, I didn't have those dreams. So it's extremely positive feelings about what I was doing. And I enjoyed every bit of my life. No regrets about it. Even if I was making such little money, I enjoyed it thoroughly. So I can give you my example. Everything starts, with little steps, baby steps, and money, image, reputation, achievements, recognition, everything will follow. All that you have to do is do it with passion and do it with commitment, and be involved and like what you're doing. So yeah, job involvement, that's what I was saying. How much you can identify yourself psychologically. It's not necessary as a professor I know everything. There are hundreds and thousands of things I'm not aware of, leave alone knowing or being an expert. I just am not even aware of. You guys are way better than me in many things. You can teach me. Life teaches you, your children teach you, your students teach you plenty. So it's the identification with the job, because this is a place where I get to learn. I'm more of a student than a professor. As a person, the way I think, I'm like a student. I know a little about art behavior. I've taught it many times over, and my research is here. So I have a job. Fortunately for me, I have a mandate to teach you. It's not necessary I know everything on art behavior. I'll be fooling myself if I thought so. So the psychological identification that I can contribute and inspire a lot of younger generation of people to work hard, to invest in themselves, to have the self-belief, I think that itself it makes me very happy. And I feel good about myself because I think I'm doing a very important job as a teacher. When I was a kid, and to be honest, whatever I am today, I owe it to my teachers at school, primary and middle and high school. Those are the ones that shaped me. If I've achieved anything, I owe it 100% to my school teachers. It's they who actually laid a strong foundation to enjoy what you do, and to have that sense of self-worth, that dedication, that sense of belongingness that you can create with your students. They never thought about us as if we were kids or students. They thought about us as if we were family. And that's one thing that I've carried very close to my heart. I never think about any one of you as just being students. You're not XYZ individual having a student ID and a student name. I think about you as like an extended family. Your success, I feel I can celebrate. It's my success. So that's the feeling of self-worth and the involvement that you can create. Hopefully you'll find a job like that. Psychological empowerment, belief in the degree of influence. Now, I can actually continue the same example and tell you, teaching is one job that gives you absolute freedom. Nobody ever has to come back to my job and tell me how I've got to teach, what examples I need to give, how I treat my students, how do I grade them, how do I support them. Nobody tells me anything. I have complete freedom. So the psychological empowerment that I get while teaching and doing the job of a teacher is, I think, extreme. Nobody enjoys this much of freedom at the workplace as much as teachers do. Other people have their bosses telling them exactly what they need to do. They're being evaluated for everything. Every piece of code that they're writing on a software is being evaluated. Me, no. I can talk, I can ask, I can learn from Trin, I can learn from Chris, I can learn from Vivek. All of you guys are teaching. And what better job can this be? I mean, complete empowerment. Then commitment. How much am I committed to the workplace? How emotionally connected am I? What kind of obligations towards the job that I have? Every worker in the organization should have this feeling of connect. He or she should feel, committed to the workplace. She should have the obligation to perform and give it the best, and she should also be emotionally connected, doesn't feel like leaving because it's a great place to work, great bosses, and great co-workers, and the peer group is great, the team is amazing. You just want to stay committed, because the fact that you want to leave or you might have to leave is something that you don't want to think about, because it's a great place to work. You connected with what you do, and you have this obligation towards your customers or towards your team or company that you work with. That's what is commitment: identifying an organization and its goals, and wishing to maintain membership. I want to belong here because it gives me that sense of satisfaction. I have an obligation. It makes me feel good. It utilizes my skills. I feel recognized here, and I just want to continue. I don't want to lose this membership and this great bunch of people that I work with. So commitment is a very important attitude that you want all your workers to have. If it's only one person having that commitment at the workplace, not much can be achieved. But if you have all of your team members, majority of your employees having strong organizational commitment, that is when great things can be happening at the workplace. Any questions, anything that you want to share here? Okay, we can go off to the next slide. And then you have perceived organizational support. What kind of support do I get from my boss? What kind of resources do I get to have access to? Because I'm an NYT employee, for example, I get access to software, use of Bloomberg terminal. I get training, webinars. I get a chance to attend them for free. I can invest in improving my skill sets. I can have access to journals from the NYT library. I can utilize that from doing my research. I get funding support from New York Tech and from the School of Management to pursue my research. I get plenty of recognition from my peer group, and I get a lot of recognition from my boss. I just told you all the perceived organizational support. I'm happy to be part of New York Tech. It's because of that. The rewards are fair. I have some chance in decision making. My boss is very supportive. I get the financial resources, intellectual resources, software technology resources. And I can speak to my boss whenever I want to. The power distance is low. So perceived organizational support is important in countries where power distance is lower. So, my dean always is open to discussions, and I'm happy to go to him and give my ideas, and he always is encouraging. So I can give you that as an example of perceived organizational support. You as a manager, tomorrow when you have your own company, or you are in a very good position at the middle level, management level, for example, make sure your employees get strong support, because perceived organizational support adds to job satisfaction, adds to empowerment at the workplace, gets them to stay more committed. And you want smart, talented people to stay with you for a long time. You don't want them to leave your company, because it's difficult to find talented, motivated, and positive attitude people that easily. You just want to keep them and keep it going for as long as you can. And so give them every possible support that improves their perceived organizational support. Any questions here? Engagement, and I love the way Chris actually started off when I was calling off your names for attendance. The energy that he came up with, it's pretty contagious. So you want to be passionate with whatever you do, right? And in a good way. So the degree of involvement, the satisfaction that you have, the enthusiasm that you're on a new project and you're trying out something new for the company, you want to keep that energy going. And that's what is engagement. Suppose if I call for suggestions and discussions. Guys, what do you think about this? And if everyone is talking in this class, it's so encouraging. I mean, as a professor, I would say, wow, my students are listening to me, and they understand what I'm talking, and they're happy sharing their ideas, they're happy sharing their experiences. And it's so, fulfilling because I'm getting to learn from what my students are saying. So that's engagement.
Um,
So what's
I
your
want
take on that? Yeah.
I want to share one
Sure.
seminar that I've been participated in, and she was such a dynamic person, the
Mhm.
speaker. Unfortunately, I didn't remember her name, but she said that if you bring in a higher energy, then the room that you're gonna go into, the room will match up your energy rather than drag you down. So that
Right.
is a very
Absolutely.
powerful message.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I think Chris, thank you for setting the tone for today's class. You got me really, pumped up, and thanks for that. It's,
Got to start on a good note.
absolutely. And anybody, you can be a trigger. You're just a catalyst. It doesn't have to be that you have to give a long drawn speech to inspire people. It's one kind word and starting off on a positive note that just can set up the tone for the entire session. And thanks to you for that. Yeah, and then we go off to other job attitudes, and yeah, yeah, are these job attitudes really distinct? No. Job involvement, empowerment at the workplace, commitment, and then job satisfaction eventually. There is definitely overlap, and perceived organizational support as well. All these things overlap. One of them is connected definitely in many ways to the rest of the attitudes that we're talking of. And yeah, obviously that's true. Define job satisfaction, we have done that, but this is the worst jobs of 2013. It's strange. I mean, I wouldn't want to use the word worst jobs and the best jobs, because I know there are many people who do these kind of jobs and they're still very satisfied. They enjoy what they do. And because if you say taxi driver, I would probably think from 2013 to now, there's much of a change. Uber is there, and Lyft is there, and plenty of other things. I've seen people who own their own car and are members on the Uber network or Lyft network. They have fun. They like driving around. They like taking people around, having those casual conversations, and they make enough money. And they don't. That might not be their only job. They might have other things, and they're just doing it as something that they are happy doing. So I think this must have changed. These perhaps are no longer the worst job. Some I can understand, like firefighter. It's not an easy job. Lumberjack and stuff, which is very physically demanding. I can understand, and then yeah, you can feel for them, and hopefully things change because technology can make their life much easier and more safer. So when you know that certain jobs are very demanding on employees, and where you know that they might suffer from low levels of motivation and morale, I think it's your responsibility as a manager to see how their jobs can be made easier, more effective, efficient, as well as more safer for them to work, because they're doing the hard work, they're doing the difficult jobs, and you don't want to make it even tougher. So maybe longer breaks between in the day, more safety training, better technologies so that their exposure to risks are reduced, and maybe more days off, more paid vacation, better medical and insurance coverage, opportunities for children education. You can think of hundreds of things to compensate these people who do very tough jobs and they're putting their life at risk. You don't want them to go home and feel hurt, and they're just doing it because they need to take care of their families and themselves. And so it's your responsibility as a manager wherever you're working to figure out those jobs that are really tough and make sure you actually contribute for their welfare and safety and their well-being. And that's an important thing. I would look at this slide that way. So we finished off, and job satisfaction is a positive feeling that you have from evaluation of what the job is and how much you like the job, and also about how you feel about doing that particular job. And it's perhaps the most important attitude that matters at the workplace. Other things are also important that we spoke about, like commitment, empowerment, perceived organizational support, involvement. All these are important. But job satisfaction perhaps is the most popularly used measure, and it's the most talked about attitude at the workplace itself. So in the last 30 years, there's been plenty of research that's going on, and then it continues that way. And when there are economic cycles are there, and people are losing work, and they're getting paid lesser, they're not very satisfied. And it could also depend on the different facets of a job that are involved, and plenty of it depends on the cultural differences, which can have an impact on job satisfaction. I can give you examples. Say in India, for example, you get paid, I told you about my example, $60 a month. Can you imagine anybody doing a job like that outside of India for that little money? And I had plenty. I could give my grandma, I could spend some on my students, and I had enough for myself. So I think lot is to do with culture. You might have very little in India, but you're still pretty happy. You're still smiling. You're not complaining, because there's so much of competition. There's so much of poverty. There's so much of suffering out there, and you're taught from the culture tolerance, to pain, to difficulties. You smile. If you land, suppose in India for the first time, and you're in the airport and there is a power outage, it's not a big deal. I go to a class and the computers don't work or the projector doesn't work. In India, it was never a big deal. If the computer didn't work, if the projector didn't work, I took the old fashioned way, marker pen, and started teaching my class. I never ever complained. And that's culture. It's not about me. It's about the country where I grew up and the culture that I was raised. So culture has an impact on how much more satisfied you could be. It's always nice to have technology and the luxury and all these, access to these resources. But yeah, even without those resources, you're good to go. You're having a plan B, you have a plan C, and you're not complaining. You cope with these kind of challenges easily because it's the culture that's so supportive of that. Anybody who wants to talk about a similar kind of, experiences that you would want to share?
I had an actual question about job satisfaction.
Hmm.
Could could also like personal motivation help to, I guess, understand the job satisfaction of a person? Because if it's like the person doesn't necessarily feel comfortable where they are, or if they're not satisfied with anything around them, could it be like their actual makeup that's
Yeah,
destroying that outlook as well? Or,
absolutely. You're spot on. It's about you also because there. Yeah, you pay me $10,000 a month. I might be super satisfied, but you might pay the same $10,000 to somebody and they might never ever be satisfied. You
okay.
got me?
Exactly. So my question with that is, how
Yeah.
do you help to understand, or how would you deal with a person like that? Let's say if you're a top level manager and you're experiencing that, would you go about like repositioning them or firing them? Or what would you do?
Yeah, if I were in that position where I'm dealing with somebody who is never ever satisfied, I would try to keep them, with some challenging work, with more responsible work, with more meaningful work. It would mean that I have to get to know the person, talk to them, figure out what gives them that level of satisfaction and where they can be more involved and where they could perceive greater self-worth. These people might be wanting a role like being a mentor. They think they know a lot and they feel that they can give a lot. So why not give them an additional responsibility of being a mentor? I'm just thinking out loudly. I'm not saying this is the only
Okay.
way, but you can involve people because maybe pay is not everything to them. Money will
Exactly.
never satisfy them. So why not make their work interesting, more challenging, more significant for the organization? Let them be the face of it, and let them take away the credit because they've done something substantial, not just for themselves, but for a bunch of people and for the company as a whole. So you can come up with a lot of job design and work design elements, and you can actually try and work. Yeah, sometimes you might bump into somebody who, for someone whom nothing works, and perhaps that they are driven by things that have happened in the past in their life. They have too many negative experiences and events which have happened in their past life. It might be too late for them to even think of changing and becoming better and looking at life differently. Such people, you either have to sympathize and let them stay and chug along, or if you think that you have had enough and they're just having a negative impact on your company and everyone around, yeah, you might have to take a tough decision and say, please, you have had your time. This is your terminal year, and yeah, we don't have the kind of work that you're looking for. and please find another job for yourself. Yeah.
Thank you.
Here are elements, the facets of a job that can keep you happy and contribute to satisfaction. I spoke about, like David, you're asking me the question, it actually pertains to this first building in the Manhattan that you see here. It's work itself. uh,
Mm.
for many people, work, the nature of work is very fascinating. And I think if you see, US is a very strong and powerful nation today, with so many inventions happening here, technology being developed, patents being created, great industries coming in, so many companies in the Fortune 500. I think plenty has to be given to how much generally people have come here for proving themselves based on the work and credentialing themselves. The harder you work, the luckier that you get, and the more successful you can be. I think work has driven the United States to be where it is, and such powerful country it is. It's because of it's not about few individuals who care to work. It's about an entire population that cares to work. And I think US has got that. And I think now countries like China, for example, have caught up on that. If you see how many Chinese, young Chinese people work in different positions, in top positions across the world, it's huge numbers. Everybody's working, all of them are educated, they're ambitious. They might have challenges back home and in other countries as well, but they're working their way up there because work keeps you satisfied. It gets you recognition, it gets you success, it gets you, a face to show up in society. So I think it's a big factor for job satisfaction. Pay definitely is important. Pay gets you more satisfied, continuity at least. You want to stay there. Promotion, look at it. People don't as much, it's not being considered as such a major contributor to promotion. People people love the, sometimes promotion can be negative because it just pushes you to the point where you have to do too many things and you start feeling the burden of it. So I think I could understand why this particular study is showing this kind of result. Again, it doesn't have to be the same everywhere. This is in 2017 perhaps, in a particular context and a country. You do the study somewhere else, maybe promotion will get higher. Supervision, the type of boss you have, the fairness and just practices that they follow in treating you, that has an impact. And the freedom that you have, the empowerment that a particular she gives you, and then co-workers, the team that you have. Once you get, I worked like good 7 years in Abu Dhabi campus in New York Tech at the School of Management. We were like a family. We were 7 full-time faculty and 3 adjunct faculty, 10 in the School of Management. We were like family. We knew each other, we cared for each other, we protected each other if we had to, defended each other if we had to. And that's because it's a great team. And when you have to get into another new team members that you don't know, it takes time to forge those kind of relationships based on trust and based on mutual skills that you share. It's so co-workers, big thing. And overall, of course, many other factors. These are the countries that were studied again by these people in Journal of Management and Organization. This is another research work. And the level of satisfaction by country, Mexico seemed to be far up there, Switzerland, and then United States is pretty good. This is from 2017. Things must have changed. Post-pandemic, maybe these numbers have gone back and forth. And this is just few countries. There are other countries not even studied, and you never know. But that's just for statistical importance that we're studying that, seeing that picture. Job conditions. What causes job satisfaction? Job conditions. Imagine workers who are on the foundry, who are doing the hard work, who they're working near the furnace. Their work, nature of work is so difficult. Physically, it's so demanding. So job conditions. You sitting in an office, I sitting back home and teaching. Work is so much easier. We're sitting in the comfort of our home. Even all the IT and software engineers, for example, nothing has changed for them. The quantity of work is the same, and it gets even better. They don't have to commute and go to an office place. And in countries like India, where you have traffic congestions, it's a boon for them. It's a blessing in disguise. But those who work in the furnace, and those who work in the manufacturing locations, the work is difficult. You're dealing with chemicals, you're dealing with high temperatures, you're dealing with extreme light conditions. So it might affect adversely the level of job satisfaction. Personality, David, you spoke about this. Here it comes. Core self-evaluations. If I know how to respect myself, and as Vivek was talking about being self-aware, I would learn to respect David and everybody in this class that much more, because I have a sense of inner worth, and I understand everybody is equally capable. And I know all of you are smart and even smarter than me. And that genuine respect for people that I talk to, whether they are coworkers or whether they're my students or whether I'm talking to my boss, that personality is such an important element in your overall evaluation of how job satisfied you are. Then comes another important element called corporate social responsibility. Imagine if I work in a company that is extremely responsible towards customers, towards the planet, towards the environment, and they involve themselves in a lot of charity. I mean, you feel that much more satisfaction. You feel proud to be part of such an organization which is involved in giving back to the societies that they operate in. Would you agree? Companies that give back all the time. They're contributing in children education. They're contributing alleviation of poverty. They actually are reaching out to places that have been hit by natural calamities. And they do a lot in the societies they belong to. Like they can create little, opportunities for jobs, for employment, and they are supportive of a lot of social, initiatives that happen around them. These are immensely strong companies, and they create such positive vibes that you feel more job satisfied, apart from the work that you do, the pay you get, the promotion opportunities you have, the kind of bosses that you work with. You're happy to be part of a company that's looked by society, that's perceived by society as being responsible, right? Outcomes of job satisfaction. This is an important thing. You're looking at job performance being better. They're more productive. They're more efficient and effective. Organizational citizenship behavior. Now, when I go back to India or I travel to other parts of the world, I want to be speaking good about New York Tech and School of Management. And I want to talk great about my students. I even trust me, guys. When I go home, I have a lot of nice stories. I remember you even if you've forgotten me, because you create a lasting impact on your professors. And anything that I could do to promote New York Tech brand, or the programs and the quality of American education opportunities, experiential kind of opportunities, hands-on learning opportunities that American education offers, all I'm happy to speak about it. So this citizenship behavior, this is not required of my job. These are not key performance indicators. Nobody is observing me whether I'm saying the right things about New York Tech, but I'm happy doing it. It's because I'm job satisfied. Customer satisfaction. The way I treat you depends on how satisfied I am. And the same happens at every organization. If your employees are happy and satisfied, they treat customers better. So they're contributing in a big way to overall customer satisfaction, life satisfaction. I've spent like good part of 25 years, last 25 years of my life teaching. You don't want to feel you've wasted a lifetime, right? When you spend, that's substantial, guys. Time flies. You're all just at the cusp of starting your career. But trust me, in a flash, it'll be 20 years of your career. You'll say, I'm 20 years into this industry. Time simply flies. Did you realize January in 2021 is already gone? We were just wishing each other Happy New Year. And we are in February. I'm like, how quick that January could go by. Even before we realized, it just flew. So please make every day count. Life satisfaction is important. When you look back after 20 years of your life, you say, yeah, that's a life well spent. That's a life well invested in. And it gave me opportunities to contribute to communities that I live in. So if you're not satisfied, then what happens? Responses to dissatisfaction. Constructive responses from dissatisfaction that's active is when people voice their concerns. I'm dissatisfied. I'm happy to discuss why I'm dissatisfied. If I have some constructive ideas to share of how we can improve things at the workplace, I'm happy to share those ideas. I'll not just keep quiet. But constructive, but passive, I'm not going to talk, is being loyal. I'll just stay back. I'll not criticize. I'll not voice my opinions. I'll just stay loyal. I'll try and support the company that I'm working with, even if I'm not fully happy. This is constructive, active, and passive. You want to be here. but you can still be polite. That's what I want to try and emphasize. Be courteous, okay? When you voice your dissatisfaction, you can still be courteous. That's a lot of maturity. That's a lot of inner strength. And destructive is active. You just want to get away. You say, this is a place where I cannot continue. It's insufferable. I can't stay here. You just want to leave immediately. Or you can neglect your current work. That's bad, destructive. I don't do my job well. I don't teach well. I don't engage. I don't respond to my students well. I don't do enough research. That's destructive. That's passive. It's not helping anyone, not me nor you. So these are responses of dissatisfied people. And then you have counterproductive behavior, the damage property, they involve in stealing, they make undue advantage of opportunities to make extra money, they absent themselves, a lot of people leaving the company, that's turnover. So this is all counterproductive, dysfunctional behavior, worker behavior. When you damage property, when you don't care for people around you, where you absent yourself, you're low on your inputs and contributions, all dysfunctional, counterproductive behavior. Implications for managers, I think the whole discussion today, I've talked about how important job satisfaction is. You want to keep people happy, you want to retain talented people. Talent retention is a big thing. Finding talent, developing talent, and talent retention is extremely important. Human resource is one capital that you want to take good care because it stays forever, and over experience it appreciates. All other assets depreciate, human assets actually appreciate over time. Experience is invaluable. When people leave, they're just not leaving a position, they're taking them with them all a lot of tacit knowledge. You don't want that tacit knowledge to leave and leave your company. So keeping people happy and keeping them satisfied, and it helps in retention and it helps in productivity. And you're talking about, and you want to do it objectively. Causality has to be studied. You don't want to be doing random small sample surveys and saying, oh, all our employees are happy. You might want to look into the context. What context are people working in? Somebody is working in difficult situations, and maybe that's affecting their satisfaction. And someone has a easier situation to deal with, so that's why their satisfaction is better off. So you want to consider the causality of job satisfaction. Somebody has a bad boss, and that's why he's not job satisfied. Somebody has a poor team, they're not contributing, that's why their performance is hurting and they cannot feel more satisfied. Somebody's family problems are affecting their job satisfaction, family life or hurting their work life. So it's important that you need to figure out what is the causality and take a large sample, because you want to make sure whenever you're drawing those inferences and having interventions at the company, you don't want to depend on data which is shallow. A few employees surveyed, representing only few divisions or departments. That's not fair. And perhaps you want to take longitudinal data, it's like for the last 6 months, last 1 year or 3 years, and figure out what's actually causing higher levels of job satisfaction, what is causing job dissatisfaction. And if you figure out ways, if you can improve job satisfaction, that's perfect. So, and also look at the work environment that we are talking of, right? The exogenous variables have to be considered while doing any of these surveys and analyzing the data before you choose the right set of interventions to improve job satisfaction. So we're done with the class itself. So if you have questions, you can ask me, or else